vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Karen, and for the next hour, I will be reading from the Buffalo News Gusto, May 17, 2026 issue from the Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Closed, calling it quits. A shaky economy climate has taken a toll on these 12 area restaurants. It was a rough winter for Western New York's restaurants. Some blame the soaring cost of ingredients. Then there is a climbing cost of living. Customers likely don't have as much disposable income to spend on dining out when, for example, the average gallon of gas cost over $4.50. This article was written by Francesca Bond. Others think the cold and snowy winter kept locals in their homes, cooking their own cheaper food rather than weathering the frigid temperature to go to the neighborhood tavern. As evident in the pre-closure post trend of last year, restaurants have implored their guests to remember that they only survive with customer support. It's kind of like the small thing. People ask how you're doing, and you're like, good, fine, even if it's really maybe not the case. That's a lot of the restaurant industry. You don't want to show weakness, said Allison Clancy, owner of the Mint Mojito Bar in November. We really don't want to get to this point of closing, but we're going to need some help. Some restaurants didn't survive the winter. Below are a dozen Buffalo area restaurants that have closed so far this year. Number 1, Allen Burger Venture. After a decade in Allentown, the craft beer and burger restaurant closed in January and wrote on Facebook, "The Buffalo food scene isn't what it used to be." And like so many small independent restaurants, the challenges of these changing times have led us to the difficult decision. Eccles, 703 Seneca Street. Eccles lived in Larkinville after its closing its iconic Orchard Park restaurant, but now its run has ended. The silver lining is that chef Darian Bryan, who will be fresh off a successful reality TV run, has exciting plans for the space. He plans to open Reserve Steakhouse in the former Eccles in June. Fairbanks and 460 Center Street, Lewiston. Fairbanks opened last summer after a $1 million renovation of Lewiston's historic Frontier House. It lasted only 9 months. Co-owners Jake Strasser and Daniel Hagen, who also own Allentown's Billy Club, said on social media that they're taking a hiatus to reevaluate the restaurant, but for now it is closed. Froth Brewing Company, 700 Military Road, known for its smoothie-style beers. Froth Brewing Company closed its tap room this winter after 7 years. What began as a small dream grew into something so much bigger, a place filled with laughter, friendship, and community, wrote Froth on social media. Grayland, 537 Main Street. Grayland Downtown's favorite gin bar and sidewalk patio closed in February, but the restaurant will reopen under new ownership. Bad Neighbors, a tavern for wings and classic cocktails, plans to open and revive the space in June. Johnny D's, 2 Fountain Plaza. Johnny D's aimed to rekindle the magic that was E.B. Green's Steakhouse inside the Hyatt Agency Hotel basement, but times have changed. Johnny D's closed this winter, displacing its beloved Piano Man. Juicy Burger Bar, 1275 Delaware Avenue. Juicy Burger started out in the village of Hamburg, then reopened on the Hamburg waterfront before moving to Delaware Avenue in Buffalo. Juicy Burger closed for good this spring. The decision was not easy, but due to several factors, including the changing economy, we made the difficult decision to close. The restaurant wrote on social media. Mason's Grill 52 Main Street, Hamburg. After 23 years of business in the village of Hamburg, Mason's Grill 52 closed in May. We've celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, graduation, first dates, proposals, weddings, and everyday moments together. We have laughed with you, cried with you, and have appreciated every single moment of it. We've watched families grow up around our tables, and we've had the privilege of serving generations of guests who became true friends and family to us, wrote the restaurant on Facebook. Osteria 166 at 166 Franklin Street. After 13 years of serving Italian food in downtown Buffalo, Osteria 166 closed in March. Owners Nick Patillo and Edward Gerbacki are already working on their next venture. They're taking over the historic Ulrich's Tavern at 674 Ellicott Street, a mile uptown from Osteria, where they plan to serve casual lunch and grab-and-go dinner. Public Espresso, 391 Washington Street, 2178 Seneca Street, and 448 Elmwood Avenue. After 13 years of roasting coffee and making crullers, Buffalo Public Espresso closed all 3 of its cafes in downtown Buffalo, Elmwood Village, and South Buffalo this spring. It is difficult to end on a sour note, but doesn't diminish the many sweet ones along the way, Public Espresso wrote on social media. Steel Leaf Brewing Company, 1488 Hurdle Avenue, opened in 2022 in the Eastern Hills Mall. Steel Leaf moved to Hurdle Avenue in 2024 after a year and a half in North Buffalo. The brewery closed this winter amid a competitive brewery landscape. Winfield's Pub, 1213 Ridge Road, Lackawanna. After 12 years in Lackawanna, the Dalton family closed their well-respected tavern this winter. It has been a battle the last 2 years keeping things going, wrote the restaurant on Facebook. Winfield's Pub quickly became loved for its scratch-made food and cocktails that were much more ambitious than typical pub fare. Home movies, from remarkably bright creatures to Send Help, 10 films you can stream now. Whether you want to see Sally Field chatting with an octopus or Rachel McAdams battling a killer boar, streaming services have a new movie for all sorts of different tastes. Here are 10 of the most notable movies you can stream right now. Apex. While Charlize Theron is known for her action movies, this survival thriller has plenty of natural splendor to go with the high-stakes danger. She plays a grieving rock climber in Australia for solace after a tragic loss, and Taron Egerton is out of his mind as a sadistic serial killer hunting and chasing her through rivers and mountains, and you can watch that on Netflix. Greenland 2, The Migration. The post-apocalyptic sequel catches up with engineer John Garrity, Gerard Butler, and his family 5 years after a comet wiped out much of civilization. When the survival bunker in Greenland becomes unlivable, they embark on a perilous journey full of climate dangers and human ones to find potential salvation in France. You can watch that on HBO Max. Hollow Road. Rosamund Pike and Matthew Rhys star in this thriller as a couple who get a worrisome call from their daughter that she's hit a young girl with her car on remote road. The action takes place mostly in the parents' car as they drive to help, until certain revelations and some strange passerbys lead to a dark, satisfying twist you won't see coming. You can watch that on Hulu. The Heartbreak Kid, Becoming Shawn Michaels. If you watch Netflix's recent Hulk Hogan docuseries, this is a good chaser. The longtime digs into the origin story of longtime WWE fan favorite Shawn Michaels, who became a GOAT of pro wrestler in the 90s, while also battling drug addiction, and how he now passes on his knowledge to the next generation of performers. You can watch that on Peacock. Marty Supreme and director Josh Shelfie's superb sports comedy set in the world of 1950s table tennis. Shoe salesman Marty Mauser, Timothy Chalamet, will do anything to be a champion. He's also a selfish jerk, and his pursuit of glory sucks assorted players into his chaotic world. From my childhood friend Odessa Alzian to a famous actress, Gwyneth Paltrow. You can watch that on HBO Max. No Place to Be Single. And this Italian romantic comedy, Elisa Matilde Goli is a single mom running an estate in a Tuscan town when childhood friend Michelle Cristiano Cacamo returns home. Their reunion ignites new feelings and attractions, but when Michelle and his brother stand to inherit the estate, he and Elsa have different plans for its future. You can watch that on Prime Video. Remarkably Bright Creatures. This heartwarming dramedy stars Sally Field as Tova, an aquarium cleaner who looks out for an octopus named Marcellus, voiced by Alfred Molina. A bum ankle leads her to train young cash-strapped drifter Cameron Lewis Pullman on their job. Though Marcellus sees that together they can help each other find what's missing in their lives. You can watch that on Netflix. Send Help. Rachel McAdams enjoys one of her most fun and unhinged roles outside of Regina George in Sam Raimi's dark comedy thriller. She stars as a strategy expert and Survivor superfan who gets stuck on a deserted island with her sexist techno bro boss, Dylan O'Brien. She thrives and he struggles, and the situation grows gory and bonkers. You can watch that on Hulu. Swapped. In this heart-tugging, body-swapping, fantastical animated comedy, Fury, Little Mammal Ollie, voiced by Michael B. Jordan, and Feathery Bird Ivo, Juno Temple, are from rival species. But when a mystical orb lets them see what it's like to live the other's existence, they form a bond crucial to saving their ecosystem when a fearsome threat arises. You can watch that on Netflix. Wuthering Heights. With Emerald Fennell's gothic and saucy take on Emily Bronte's classic novel, it's best to just sit back and immerse yourself in the sensory overload. Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi star as childhood pals turned hot and bothered frenemies, having quite the torrid love affair as adults in the sumptuous and quite haughty Bad Romance. You can watch that on HBO Max. Memorial Day plans, Mumford's Museum anniversary. Article is by Tony Roberto. How did we get to talking about Memorial Day already when it doesn't even feel like we had any spring yet? Memorial Day, a time to honor our fallen soldiers, is Monday, May 25th. But with events filling the entire weekend, we are expanding the things to do calendar a bit for your planning. A good starting point is the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park on the downtown waterfront near Canal Side. It will be open all week from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. for tours of the USS Little Rock, USS Sullivan's, and USS Croker. The park also hosts special activities. The Naval Park grounds will be covered with 7,300 flags as part of the One Life, One Flag installation. The flags represent the average number of veterans who have lost their battle with PTSD each year, an average of 22 people per day. At 2 p.m., May 25th, the solemn tolling the boat ceremony takes place near the USS Croker. On May 26th, the movie night starts at 6 p.m. in the Hangar Building with The Fighting Sullivans, the 1944 film about the 5 Sullivan brothers who died in World War II. The USS Sullivan's, a retired United States Navy Fletcher-class destroyer at the Naval Park, is named in their honor. May 26 events start at 9:30 a.m. with music by the Buffalo Brass Quintet, military honors, and a non-denominational memorial service at 10 a.m. near the Vietnam Memorial. Multiple memorial ceremonies will follow. Learn more about at Buffalo Naval Park. The Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra Patriotic Pops will be at 10:30 a.m. Friday and 7:30 p.m. Saturday in Kleinhans Music Hall. From the Star Spangled Banner to America the Beautiful in O Canada, Patriotic music is the theme of this annual program by the BPO and the Buffalo Philharmonic Chorus. Ron Spiegelman conducts with performances by clarinetist Sale Andolina and vocalist Colleen Williams. The program also includes the inspirational What a Wonderful World music from Band of Brothers and an armed services salute. Get there early on Friday for free coffee and donuts served at 9:30 a.m. in the Mary Seton Room. Visit bpo.org. Memorial Day Weekend Festival, May 22nd to the 25th along Old Falls Street, 101 Old Falls Street in Niagara Falls. Old Falls Street will be lined with entertainment, music, food trucks, vendors, and family entertainment. During this annual outdoor festival, performances include the Buffalo Aerial Dance on Saturday and Stillwalkers on May 25th. Hours are 5 to 10 p.m., Friday noon to 10 p.m., Saturday and next Sunday and noon to 6 p.m. May 25th. It is free. Find more info, including band lineups at oldfallsstreetusa.com. Apple Blossom Festival, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. today at the Newfane Historical Society. Let the festival season begin. There are annual apple festivals in Newfane. Genesee Country Village and Museum celebration, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Friday at the museum, 1410 Flint Road Hill, Mumford. The largest living history museum in New York State is celebrating a historic milestone of its own, its 50th anniversary. It opened in May 1976 with 35 buildings in the historic village. It now has 68. This celebration has extended hours to 8 p.m., during which you can visit the 19th century village, the Flint Hill Store, John L. Whaley Gallery, and the Genesee Country Nature Center. Costumed interpreters will be on hand as you tour spaces and buildings, learning about life in the 1800s. Discover even more in the exhibit, an extraordinary attraction, 50 Years of History, Art, and Nature in the John L. Wheel Gallery. The museum is open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday. Visit gcv.org for more information on special events and extended hours. A quick calendar is Food Truck Thursdays, 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., Thursdays through October 15th in Niagara Square outside of Buffalo City Hall. A candid conversation with Stephen McKinley Henderson, presented by El Museo at 5 p.m. Wednesday in the Frank E. Merriweather Library, 1324 Jefferson Avenue, and that's free. Southern Culture on the Skids with the Get Down, 7 p.m. Thursday in the Rec Room, Buffalo, 79 West Chippewa. Funkenstein's opening party at 7 p.m. Friday at Mickey Rat's, 8934 Lakeshore Road, Angola. YFN Lucci, 7 p.m. Friday in the Showplace Theater, 1065 Grand Street. USS The Ultimate Weekend Warrior Tour, 7 p.m. Friday in the Town Ballroom, 681 Main Street, new date. This is a new date. Totally Buffalo Festival 2026, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and next Sunday at Buffalo River Works, 359 Gannon Street. Taste. The Lebanese brothers are back. Back with more mature Lulu. The article is by Francesca Bond. Jonathan Eade started cooking in his grandmother's basement in South Buffalo. He grew up across the street from his grandmother, Lulu, in a big Lebanese family. His daily chores included helping Lulu mix, roll, and bake bread. They weren't just baking for their big family, they baked for the whole community. Lulu's house was an unofficial bakery and restaurant. Buffalo's Lebanese community knew to order bread and stew from her. Eade and his brother and business partner, Peter Eade, it's E-I-D, named their new restaurant Lulu in her honor. She passed away at least 10 years ago. Still, people walk in, they come and they eat and are like, "Can I talk to the owner? Is that Lulu from off of Seneca Street?" And I'm like, "Yep, that's her." Eid said. She's kind of like a little famous. It's a big part of the passion in the dishes. I want those same families when they come in here to hopefully say, just like Lulu. Jonathan and Peter Eid opened their first Lebanese restaurant, Meza, in the Elmwood Village in 2010. In 2016, they opened downtown Neapolitan-style pizza restaurant, Hearth and Press. By 2018, the Eids closed Meza and changed its concept to something more neighborhood-friendly, burgers, wings, and salads. Having Lebanese cuisines over there was difficult for people to understand. It felt like people weren't getting it anymore, Peter Eid told the Buffalo News in 2018. With Lulu, the Eids have returned to their Lebanese culinary roots, but in a new neighborhood. We always had an open mind to doing another version of Meza, so we kind of scaled it up with this one, said Jonathan Eid. Meza was a little bit more casual, more hookah and bar and all that. We have the bar, but it's a cocktail bar. We have finer wines. Our menu is more refined. It's been like 7 years since we closed. As we mature, our recipes mature with us. Lulu is in the new ground floor restaurant space within the Rails apartment building, 2939 Main Street at the top of Hurdle Avenue, straddling North Buffalo and the LaSalle neighborhood. Its dining room is sleek and modern with an open layout. The ceilings are high and black at the night sky, juxtaposing the dining room's white walls and tall windows. A homey gallery wall of baskets, shutters, and picture frames, warm space, a wood-paneled bar with liquor on illuminated bookshelves feels on trend for an upscale cocktail bar. Lou serves both lunch and dinner, a dying habit as restaurants struggling with high costs opt to focus on one or the other, not both. Lebanese staples made from a base of tahini, olive oil, and spices sourced straight from Lebanon populate the menu, but the Eids also add their own flourish. Noteworthy stands begin on the cocktail menu. Lulu's Za'atar Martini is a tart twist on the boozy classic. It's a coup of what looks like and tastes a bit like lemonade, but it is a mixture of vodka, lemon juice, and thyme syrup. It's served with a rim of za'atar spices, with za'atar and oil pooling on the top, making it unexpectedly photogenic. Za'atar is also used in a paloma. The drinks menu includes a $20 shot of the Lebanese anise spirit arak and Armenian wine. The star of Lulu's is the kibbeh naya, $25, a Lebanese steak tartare. It's served on a wooden charcuterie board and comes with mint leaves, sliced radishes, and onions and warm pita. The steak tartare is rich and creamy, melting in the mouth like butter. It's a decadent dish, small and pricey, but a little goes far, especially when paired with a few of the other side dishes on the menu, small plate style. This is like my heart on a plate, Eid said. The kibbeh naya is kind of like a prideful dish. That's our big dish for holidays. You know, Easter Sunday, that's the dish you make. When I make it, I really want to make sure it's perfect. Lulu's small plate includes patties of beef and pine nuts served over a bed of cucumber yogurt for $14, and a plate of crispy seared halloumi cheese topped a small side of olives, cucumbers, and tomatoes. Amid the staples, you'll find dip appetizers, $10 to $14 of hummus, baba ganoush, and roasted red pepper dip for both lunch and dinner. Big hummus fans may want to try the trio of regular basil and red pepper hummus dips for $36. There's also grape leaves for $12, Lebanese pickle and olive plate for $8, and flaky spinach fatir Lebanese hand pies for $12. Salads like the crisp and refreshing tabbouleh salad, finely chopped parsley, tomato, and onions tossed in olive oil and lemon for $15 can be ordered alone as a small plate or topped with protein and turned into a meal. Proteins: chicken tawuk, kefta, falafel, and beef tenderloin can also be found in pita wraps, $14 to $18, and roast bowls from $16 to $20. Most of the menu is available for both lunch and dinner, but some things are only for certain times of day. Rice bowls are only for lunch. Manushi, Lebanese flatbread, is a nod to the Eid's pizza love and also available for lunch. It comes topped with za'atar and cheese for $15. Minced beef and tomato pie $16, and kefta and cheese for $18. Skewers $28 to $32 are only served for dinner. The dinner menu also includes a few exclusive entrees, including lamb chops for $32, shrimp for $28, and cod fillet with tahini for $32. Desserts include rice pudding for $8, baklava for $10, the sweet and savory cheese dessert kanafa for $15, and ashta for $14, which is a thick layer of cool clotted cream drizzled generously in honey and topped with crushed walnuts. Lulu is open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday. Restaurant news. Check out BuffaloNews.com to read the latest on how the Canadian Sabres rivalry has left the ice and entered restaurants. Business in both cities are jokingly removing references to buffalo wings from menus and Montreal steak seasoning from grocery shelves. Canalside and Silo City will host watch parties when soccer fever hits downtown during FIFA World Cup in June. Food events at the True Honey Teas Festival. Drink unlimited tea samplings, learn from tea seminars, listen to live music, and shop at a local vendor fair. It's from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on May 30th and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. May 31st at the Fairgrounds, 5600 McKinley Parkway in Hamburg. Tickets are $14. The Buffalo Zoo Wines in the Wild returns from 6 to 9 p.m. June 18th at the Zoo, 300 Parkside Avenue. Sample wine, beer, and food from around 30 local wineries, breweries, and restaurants. There will also be music and guest appearances from the zoo's animal ambassadors. Tickets are $55 for general admission, $45 for members, $75 for early access, and $25 for designated drivers. This event is for 21 and older. The Octopus Book keeps pulling its author back in, by Christopher Sorelli. And Shelby Van Pelt lives in Wheaton, Illinois, on an unassuming street, the sort without a gate at the entrance, or a fleet of Teslas charging in the driveways, or gaggles of dads jogging in packs. Her neighbors are elderly. Her subdivision was built largely in the 1960s and has not changed much since then. The driveways are fairly short, and the top of them, the garage door hangs open. A children's game is spread across the lawn. Nothing about this neighborhood screams blockbuster. You probably don't even recognize her name. Yet Shelby Van Pelt has had the kind of runaway literary success that every debut novelist dreams about. She's had the kind of word-of-mouth success that seems to spring out of Chicago area roughly once every decade. Think about Audrey Niffenegger and The Time Traveler's Wife, 2003, or perhaps Gillian Flynn and Gone Girl in 2012. It's the kind of success that means, regardless of whatever the future holds for Shelby Van Pelt, the author should plan to be known as the author of That Octopus Book for a while. That Octopus Book, Remarkably Bright Creatures, her first novel, is a story of an elderly janitor who bonds with a giant Pacific octopus. It was published 4 years ago. Since then, it's been a fixture of the New York Times bestseller list, published in 38 countries and sold more than 4 million copies in the United States alone. The inevitable movie version with Sally Field as the janitor premiered on Netflix earlier this month. It seemed like a good time to stop by and ask what's next. What's next, we learn, even 4 years on, is more octopus, if just slightly more octopus than before. Every time she gets started on a new book, curse you, literary gods, the old one returns to the bestseller list, gets selected for another one book, one city, community read, Mississippi, Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, California, Nebraska, or another reading group somewhere asks her to speak to them. She doesn't like to say no. This new film, which is easygoing, sweet, and made us tear up, probably won't help. It's been hard for me, I found, to fully immerse myself in a new book when I still have one foot in this book, she said. I feel like I need to grow a remarkable second brain continually, tending to remarkably bright creatures while simultaneously creating something fresh. Octopuses, incidentally, have 9 brains. But they haven't written many bestsellers. Van Pelt, who is 45 and grew up in Tacoma, Washington, writes in what she calls her octopus garden, a small converted storage room in front of a couple of feet from the front door of her home. She works surrounded by octopuses gifted to her at book signings, crocheted octopuses, painted octopuses, rubber tentacles rise out of a pen cup, and gold-colored tentacles serve as a bookshelf. A framed New York Times bestseller list and Publishers Weekly hangs above. Behind are rows of international editions of remarkably bright creatures, and the copy she carries to book events, now tattered after hundreds of appearances. There are small dollar horses, the traditional Swedish carved figurines that figure into remarkably bright creatures, and her own Swedish background. There are the spines of bestsellers by Chicago authors John Egg and Rebecca Mackay and George Saunders, as well as a row of novels by the Swedish author Fredrik Backman, A Man Called Ove, whose heartwarming stories about grief and community wouldn't be a bad model for Van Pelt. She worked for years as a litigator consultant, meaning she calculated what the financial damages might be in a lawsuit. She also sold running shoes for a time. Van Pelt and her husband, Andrew, who met as teenagers at a California college, moved around for a while before settling in Wheaton, next door to their hometown of Geneva. Remarkably bright creatures sprang from a prompt in a writing class while they were still in Atlanta. She was asked to write from an unusual perspective. She remembered this internet video she had seen about an octopus who escaped his aquarium. The feedback was good, and she wondered if she should write a book. She added Tova to the narrative, a stoic Swedish woman, basing her loosely on her own grandmother, who was also tiny and stubborn and liked to keep herself busy long into old age. She did a lot of research on octopuses. In my subconscious, I think I was avoiding myself by choosing to this story. Except I also don't think of myself as a creative person, so the characters came from people I know. Van Pelt would occasionally stop to ask herself if this was okay. She could just dream up something, write a story, and make this her job. She could. Her octopuses was named Marcella McSquiddles, an aging crank who notes his days of captivity in a Puget Sound aquarium as if on death row, but also recognizes the night janitor, Tova, is lonely and grieving. He thinks stuff like, as a general rule, I like holes. A hole at the top of my tank gives me freedom, but I do not like the hole in my heart. She has only one, not three, like me, Tova's heart. I will do everything I can do to help her fill it. To this, Van Pelt added a probable suicide and a couple of recent deaths, a trio of women called the Nitwits, and a garage rocker searching for the father who left them. When she sent the manuscript to an agent, an assistant read it and wrote in the margin, "This is either bananas or brilliant." That was 6 years ago when Van Pelt was 40. She figures she'll be 47 or 48 by the time the next book is published. She wonders a lot about whether she did the right thing by being practical and going into litigation consulting after school. If not, she might be on her 5th book by now. On the other hand, right place, right time. If she had tried to write a novel when she was 24, it would have been cringy, she said. Also, Sally Field might not be playing a thinly veiled version of her grandmother now, and Alfred Molina might not be voicing an octopus she named Marcellus McSquiddles. She didn't write the screenplay, she said. Early, she wouldn't even know where to start. Besides, there's a pressure now of following a grand slam in your first at bat with at least a solid double. I have gone through a whole psychological process. My editor was involved. My agent was involved. We tried crunching the numbers on a new book deal, and I just want to scale it all back. I don't know if this can happen again. It was so beyond expected. There's an idea of constant growth that the next thing needs to be even bigger. But I think it's okay for someone in my situation that the next thing is not bigger. I very much want to go back to a normal definition of what a successful book is. It's like when a band I love has a new album and it's something totally different that can be difficult for a fan. On the other hand, I think of the Beatles, Taylor Swift, proof that you can transform a sound without losing fans. I don't know where I will end up. I don't see my writing voice changing, but I also don't want to be the person who writes animal books. I doubt I'll be writing octopus novels in the next 20 years. Television. Top 10 thoughts on Trump versus Kimmel 2.0. To paraphrase a memorable, disarming line by the late Republican President Ronald Reagan, there he goes again. President Trump, with an assist from his wife Melania, last week demanded that ABC late-night host Jimmy Kimmel be fired for something he said. The most recent time he called for Kimmel's show to be canceled came in September when conservatives concluded that the late-night host was suggesting the alleged assassin of conservative activist Charlie Cook was a MAGA supporter, which was at odds with what his parents said about their son. Kimmel wasn't saying that, but you could see how his words could be misinterpreted. That's his fault. This time, Kimmel was in trouble over a joke in which he said the First Lady was beautiful and looked glowing like an expectant widow. In comedy, timing is practically everything. In this case, the timing of Kimmel's joke and the outrage practically exonerates him. The joke received little attention when Kimmel cracked it 2 nights before the latest assassination attempt on Trump's life on the night of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Any thought that it could have motivated the would-be assassin is ridiculous because of reports that he plotted his attempt weeks before Kimmel made his joke. The latest Kimmel controversy led me to reread the column I wrote after the Kirk controversy that led ABC to suspend Kimmel's show amid pressure from affiliates owned by Nexstar and Sinclair, which she also refused to air it for a few days after its return. I gave my top 10 thoughts about the controversy in September with apologies to David Letterman. Then and now, I was taking some time off when the controversy erupted. It gave me more time to think about the ramifications the first time, as it does now. Here I go again with my top 10 thoughts about the latest controversy. Some topics are eerily similar to the September list. Kimmel owes the President and First Lady a thank you. The last time Trump went after him, Kimmel's ratings soared locally. It was a deja vu all over again ratings-wise. The ratings for Kimmel show on April 27th and 28th on WKBW TV Channel 7 soared as viewers stayed up late to hear his response for the calls for him to being fired. The audience more than doubled the Channel 7 news lead in on Monday. It helped that the CBS affiliate WIVB TV Channel 4 was airing a repeat of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and NBC affiliate WGRZ TV Channel 2 was carrying the NBA playoff game at 11:30 p.m. instead of The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. But the 3.9 rating that Kimmel received for the first 15 minutes of his show on April 27th is high by current late night standards at this time of the year. Kimmel gave critics a reason to complain. Kimmel was trying to be funny in a routine in which he staged an alternative White House Correspondents' Dinner in the tradition of a comedian roasting the president. It was in response to the WHCD deciding to go with mentalist Oz Perlman rather than the annual practice of having a comedian going after a president with a stream of jokes that can be borderline tasteless. Like calling the First Lady an expectant widow. The humor police didn't like Kimmel's jokes. The critics who felt the joke was tasteless apparently never watched Ricky Gervais or Nikki Glaser host the Golden Globes. Going close to the line is part of the gig. When Kimmel replayed the joke Monday on his first show back, his audience still laughed. Humor is subjective. The president apparently thinks calling CBS interviewer Norah O'Donnell a dumble after she asked him a question he didn't like is clever or funny. ABC's owner Disney could have censored the joke. Jimmy Kimmel Live is actually filmed in Los Angeles hours before it airs. If ABC had problems with it or thought there was going to be more outrage, it had hours to cut it. Kimmel's response was masterful, just like he was upon returning from his suspension. Kimmel was on his A game during the show after the Trump attacks. He noted that there was no significant initial negative reaction when he told the joke, which he said was obviously about the age difference between the president, who turns 80 in June, and his wife, 56, and the look of joy every time they are together. Kimmel also defended himself by noting that he always speaks out against violent rhetoric and suggested that a great place to stop it would be for the First Lady to have a conversation with her husband about it. Then he showed a clip in which White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that Trump's planned speech before the dinner abruptly ended would be funny, entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight. That line didn't age well. Sinclair Nexstar stayed out of it, notably Nexstar, which owns WIVB-TV and WNLO-TV, and Sinclair, which owns WUTV in Western New York, learned their free speech lesson in September and were silent this time around. Disney's statement, ABC's owner didn't seem to think the president called for Kimmel to be fired, even required it to issue a statement. That was a statement in itself. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr had lousy timing. Did I say timing is everything? Carr, who practically demanded Kimmel be punished over the Kirk remark, announced in an early review of the broadcast licensees of 8 ABC stations a day after Trump demanded Kimmel be fired. This time, Carr said the White House wasn't involved and that the review came after a year-long review investigation into the diversity, equity, and inclusion practices at Disney. However, the timing spoke volumes. The irony. The White House Correspondents' Dinner was celebrating the First Amendment, which protects even tasteless jokes, or else there wouldn't be a Golden Globes telecast, and Weeknight Update on Saturday Night Live would be canceled. Oz the Mentalist wasn't needed to predict the ending. Kimmel comes out of this with the support of almost all comedians, as well as Democrats and Republicans, united in the belief of the importance of free speech at a time it is under threat by an administration that doesn't have Reagan's sense of humor. After all, Reagan famously made a joke about his age in a presidential debate with Democratic nominee Mondale. A Life of Crime. Thriller writer Patricia Cornwell takes a scalpel to her past in new memoir by Carolyn Monroy from USA Today. Patricia Cornwell spent much of her career in the morgue. She traipsed through body farms of decomposing corpses. She tattooed a turkey from the grocery store to see how it would fade post-mortem. The author of the Kay Scarpetta novels is known for embedding herself in forensics for research, but this time she's giving her own life an autopsy. If you wondered the kind of mental fortitude it takes to spend all day with violent crime, real and imaginary, her memoir might be your answer. True Crime, out now from Grand Central Publishing, traces the author's emotionally turbulent childhood to a stint as a police reporter to the heights of her thrilling writing career. Running toward fear, Cornwell's mother suffered from psychotic depressive episodes that sent her to a psychiatric facility, while Cornwell and her brothers lived with an abusive foster family. From a young age, Cornwell learned from her mother that the world was unsafe. She was always anticipating what might injure or kill us, she writes. Life would confirm this on many occasions for Cornwell. She reveals she was molested at age 5 and later raped and drugged by a police officer in early adulthood. She writes TV and radio host Larry King forced her hand into his crotch during a flight. Writing is a cathartic for Cornwell, who prefers to run headfirst into what scares her. She's afraid of sharks. She says so naturally. She reads every article about sharks she comes across. She ruminates on the danger lurking around her, scaffolding that could fall, escalators that slice. Most people are on autopilot and they just go toddling out into the great unknown, Cornwell says. There is a difference between being vigilant and being fearful. Fear is very dangerous. You do not want to be ruled by fear. A life ruled by fear is one destined for ruin because it stops you from doing everything that might cause you to have success and a purpose. The same research lens applies to her trauma. In her first Scarpetta book, Postmortem, a police reporter is raped by a district attorney. The details are changed, but this plot was largely inspired by Cornwell's own rape when she was a reporter at the Charlotte Observer. In hindsight, she says, writing about it was a therapeutic move. It's not just my story. Cornwell's childhood memories are uncharacteristically detailed, but it's not her fictional flair coming into play here. Much of the true crime comes from a manuscript that Cornwell wrote at 19, a thinly veiled autobiography about her eating disorder. She turned in the 300 or so pages as her college thesis and put it in a box, never resurfacing it until now. When she read it in her 60s, she scrapped the language, but took the vivid memories. I couldn't have written this book today without the Patsy Daniels, her maiden name, from long ago, and her work never would have seen the light of day had Patricia Cornwell not come along. Cornwell says, that's been the best part of this. I feel like I went back and rescued my child. I marveled over the things that I noticed back then and the way I described them, and I realized it was rather humbling. I had more respect for the young person that had been there that I didn't think was all that good at anything. A childhood in limbo also comes painfully into focus here. Cornwell brings readers into her parents' fraught relationship. The two of them virtually destroyed each other, she says, and her mother's mental health struggles. In one instance, before her mother was hospitalized, she gathered up all the children's clothing and possessions and threw them into the fire. It's not just my story, Cornwell says, with the eye of a journalist and a mystery writer. She works her way up the family tree to explain her mother's mental health issues, investigating her grandfather and great-grandfather, both of whom fell to their death under somewhat mysterious circumstances. Family tragedies steeped into the next generation. Cornwell never had children because she was afraid she'd pass on the abandonment loss fear that she felt from her parents. Cornwell is a private person. She's dealt with stalkers. Putting her personal life under a microscope felt unnerving, but it's important that you do what you need to do, even if it scares you a little bit, she says. If anybody might have been destined for calamity and failure, it honestly was me, and yet it didn't turn out that way. So that should give hope to other people in their own stories, especially artists and dreamers, people who have something they want to do and it keeps failing and they are in despair. I know that feeling. On Gardening, Fragrance and Bloom by Norman Winter. As gardeners, we think about flora and fauna, but I would like to suggest one more thing, and that is fragrance. Fragrance is one of those memory makers, memories for the children who grew up with garden fragrances and for spouses celebrating anniversaries. It's not just the memories of the flowers' beauty, but also that mom and dad grew them and what the time was like. Today I had a flashback to a moment in time as I walked out onto my patio. I wasn't planning on olfactory experience, nor did I even think about growing more Supertunia petunias than ever before. As I watered and took pictures, I remembered a trip to the plant trials in California. 20 years ago, this was like the adventure of a lifetime for horticulturists making yearly treks to see all the new plants that would soon arrive. I would fly into San Diego and several days later return home via San Jose or San Francisco after stopping at each participating grower. One year I stopped at a large greenhouse and the entire glass building was dedicated to petunias. I don't remember the grower, but I'll always remember the most thrilling olfactory experience in my life. The greenhouse had everyone's petunia varieties at peak bloom, and the aroma and beauty are still remembered. This year, it was time for some new containers. I was looking into an assortment of sizes 10-inch, 12-inch, and 16-inch too. There is no telling what might find when shopping for containers. I found a set of earth tones that really reminded me of the colors you might see in Teos, New Mexico. All of the containers were filled with good lightweight potting soil and had slow release fertilizer incorporated. The nicest thing about my patio is sunlight. Throughout my landscape, sunlight is a premium. In Georgia, I assure you, we water almost daily during the growing season. But back in my containers, oddly, when I got home, the turquoise colored one in the set dictated I went with Supertunia Bermuda Beach, the prettiest coral pink petunia ever. I chose a triadic color scheme, selecting Supertunia Saffron Finch and Supertunia Mini Vista Indigo petunias as partners. A white pot will allow for any colors of flowers you may choose. Colorful pots may do that too, but it will also open the door to take advantage of the color as a critical element in the design. My set of pots had a rusty orange selection, and I went with a color scheme we might call a split complementary. I chose Supertunia Mini Vista Indigo and Mini Vista Yellow with Supertunia Persimmons. My patio is not that large, about 400 square feet, but I have 24 Supertunia petunias along with Superbella calabraceus, Luscious lantanas, and Queen Tut papyrus going in these tight quarters. I have all the classes of Supertunias, Vistas, Mini Vistas, and regular selections. Our grandparents grew old-fashioned seed-produced petunias that were reseeded from year to year. While these were noted for their fragrance, I can tell you that the Supertunias, while champions in trials for their performance and beauty, have a fragrance that is definitely worth stopping to smell the, well, you know, petunias. Make the year you grow for fragrance. Start making memories and see if your nose knows what my nose knows. Norma Winter is a horticulturist, garden speaker, and author of Tough as Nails Flowers for the South and Captivating Combinations, Color and Style in the Garden. Don't forget to wipe shopping cart handles. Hints from Heloise. Dear Heloise, we enjoy your tips and knowledge, but we do have a comment regarding the person that only uses the store wipes when leaving the store. My husband and I are both military veterans and shop at our local base commissary. Whenever we shop there or other stores, we insist that we use the wipes. The reason for this is that one year my husband obtained a card for us and was using it to shop. Within a day he was sick, so we looked at the back of his throat. We've never seen a clear uvula hanging down at the back. But there it was. I rushed him to our local urgent care. We are glad that we did, as the doctor was able to diagnose him with a foreign type of strep throat. He stated that he knew about this when he was overseas, but he had never seen it in the United States. We told the doctor that all we did was shop at our local commissary, where there are many people from different areas of the U.S. and other countries. So he suggested that each time and every time we shop, we should wipe down the carts, especially the handles. We now do this wherever we shop. Home canning. Every year I do some canning of the fruits and vegetables I grow in the summer. To peel tomatoes, plums, and peaches, I drop these items into boiling water, then remove them and place them in very cold water. The skin cracks and it's easy to peel off, often with just my fingers. False medical claims. I am writing in response to your reply to Colleen in Maryland regarding concerns that non-medical personnel at insurance companies make decisions about patients' health and medical necessity. There are several factors to consider regarding the oversight system for insurance companies. Systemic fraud. Millions of dollars are paid annually for unnecessary tests or services that were never performed. Addressing this fraud is a critical component to the industry oversight. Documentation requirement. Often a denial occurs because a provider failed to submit the necessary clinical documentation to support the medical necessity of a test. When a practice submits a prior authorization, it's their responsibility to provide the required clinical information. It is important to look at the broader context of healthcare costs, including high charges associated with emergency room visits for minor issues. I encourage consumers to review their plan options carefully prior to purchasing them and consider how their clinical information is shared between the providers and insurers. Cheryl, insurance fraud, as you mentioned, is a serious matter and can send someone to prison with large fines. In the end, it'll ruin their future in a number of ways. The huge dollar amount that fraudsters expect to receive is usually cut down in an appeals court, and their attorneys will expect to be paid as part of their winnings. It's a long, drawn-out procedure, and the stress alone is hard on everyone involved. So think twice before you file a false claim. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Gusto paper, Sunday, May 17th, issue of the Sunday Gusto from the Buffalo News. We read from the Sunday Gusto from the Buffalo News every Sunday at noon. Your reader has been Karen, and thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the front section of the Sunday Times. At 2 o'clock, we have the New York Times Opinion section. And at 3 o'clock, we have the New York Times Arts and Leisure section. Stay with us for these readings and more throughout the day. If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book,